Welcome to the Open Mind Show. I'm Anita Burns. My guest today is Esther Jenkins, and Esther is a shaman. She teaches shamanism. She's studied it for many years, and this is a topic that I am fascinated by, but know very little about. So I'm really looking forward to talking with Esther and finding out more about this interesting and wonderful subject. Hi, Esther.
Hi, Anita.
How are you? Well,
I'm fine.
I've got this little bottle here.
Yes. Is it? I can't see.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, tell me what. I know that there's a popular idea in the quote New Age community about what shamanism is, and that I'm sure is distorted or isn't the whole picture. So tell me a little bit about, first of all, what it is.
Well, can I ask you a question too?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure.
What is this? What is it from your perception? What is it? Have you heard?
Well, my only experience with the shamanism is I think he was a Lakota Sioux who came and talked to a group some 15 years ago about how it had to do with connecting with the nature spirits and just sort of using the energies of the earth to perform in what translated in my mind was magic and healing and so forth. Yeah.
Well, my background is in magic. I've studied Western teachings. I started out in the late 50s, early 60s, so it's been a long journey. And in that journey, I studied everything: I Ching, Kabbalah, or Kabbalah, of course, Tarot. I did work with energy, but it wasn't hands-on energy. It was more or less distance type of healing, which was very popular at that time. As a result of that, when I got older, I more or less incorporated everything I knew into what I was doing. And of course, I ended up being a high school physical education teacher, which didn't really work real well, but you know, it was very hard to integrate and talk about, which today is not anywhere near that difficult. But as time went on, I realized that if I didn't get to be about the work, I was going to end up very ill. And that's the shaman's journey. And you've probably heard this one before. The shaman is called sometimes very early on, but not necessarily very willing to go that trip because they know it's a hard road. It doesn't have to be life-threatening, but it is always challenging. So when I came across shamanism many years later, as I got ill, of course, and ended up in the hospital, and ended up at the Healing Light Center Church in Glendale with Rosalind Briere, and some people already know Rosalind, and I had a profound experience there because she was very eclectic, just as my first teacher was, and ended up teaching us everything, including shamanism. So it was African shamanism, it was Native American shamanism, and at the same time, in the 80s, I'm in connection with Alberto Villoldo. And Alberto is just starting his work, and he's not yet have a school, so I'm bouncing around between all these processes. As time goes on and I graduate and I start a healing practice, I realize that what really has my heart is the shamanic work. And just about this time, I'm invited to go to Peru. And on my first journey to Peru with Alberto Villoldo, and of course, I have a profound experience there and reconnect with who knows how many lifetimes because I don't remember. But I know that this work, I must do this work. So I come back with this fire, you know, in my belly that I have to do this work. And I ask myself the same question you do because shamanism is so many things. It's the heart and soul of all of the spiritual traditions that we have. And if you go back far enough, you'll find some shamanic vein in every one of them in which they honor spirit in everything.
Oh, that's lovely.
That's the bottom line. Its spirit is in everything, so everything is considered sacred. It's handled differently, you know, in India than it may be in Africa. Then they may, you know, not want to kill certain animals because everything is a part of that. But in a country where, in order to survive, you have to live on the land, that's not It's not necessarily a given. So it's very adaptable to whatever the situation is. But the most important part of it for me, for young people and for people in the work, is it's very grounding. So in order to be a shaman, you have to be very connected to this world, even though you journey in the other world. And that's part of it. You are not only a healer, you work with the community, whereas in sorcery it's more about personal power. In shamanism it's more about power to support the community.
Well, you just answered my next question.
Oh. Okay.
Like, what is the difference between, let's say, what we know of as magic, and I don't mean like pull the rabbit out of the hat magic, like Wiccan magic and so forth, and shamanism, and you just answered that. And I never really thought about in that way, but yes, I can certainly see that now.
Yeah, people like to put an onus on sorcery because they say it's bad, it's black. Sorcery is sorcery. It's just manipulation of energy, and everybody has an opportunity to be a sorcerer at times, but
and how many people in the ordinary world hasn't sat there and go, oh, please let this be, please let this be? Is that not trying to manipulate energy?
Yeah, more or less.
Praying is also, you know.
It's tricky. Well, yes, and it's a matter of intent. Intent is the whole thing.
Yeah.
So reconnecting ourselves to that which we are physically been born into, what we actually cannot separate from as long as we're on the planet. We're on a physical planet. We have a physical body, and we need the world, in other words, the planet, in order to support ourselves. So if one is in touch with the plants and understands the plant world, one knows how to eat what's important and what's right for the body. Okay? Or if one needs to have something in order to survive, one then can track that. Tracking is a part of shamanism.
Track it? What do you mean by track it?
To read the energy, to see how it's flowing, and to follow the energy to where it takes you, because you've set an intent. So you're leaving this up to spirit, so to speak, to guide you along the lines that best supports who you are and what you're doing. So it's not about a godless kind of concept at all. They definitely believe that there is spirit in everything. They don't always, they sometimes venerate it as a specific spirit, but always they know there's something beyond that. In other words, the local deity is not the all.
Right, right. Yeah. So I take it that your shamanistic practice is a little more eclectic than maybe someone who is more dedicated in a particular path. A particular tradition or culture.
Well, I do teach Peruvian shamanism.
Peruvian, okay.
I do. I start off, the first class that I teach is called Exploring Shamanism, and that's eclectic. That particular class is geared to support people, to allow people to know what's available, what's going on in various shamanic traditions. When I teach the second level, that is the second workshop in the series. It's a three-part series. I'm teaching them specifically about Inca shamanism or Andean shamanism, and that is more about the archetypes, the animal spirits, how they work with the elementals, the wind, the fire, and so on. I'm
just curious, Inca and Andean, where does that information come from?
Okay, good question. When the Spaniards came in to Peru, some of the individuals fled. Those, the Q'ero, as they're called, those are the indigenous people. There are many tribes in Peru, for one thing. There's many different tribes, but the Q'ero are around the Cusco area.
And how's that spelled?
Well, it depends, because it's not a written language, so Q-hyphen-E-R-O is one way of spelling it.
So if somebody wanted to look on the internet for more information about that, they could spell that.
There's a website, it's going to not be at the top, www.Andean, no, I can't think of it right now. We'll put it up, though, because it's a marvelous dictionary that gives a complete discussion of all of these principles.
So some of the people didn't flee, and that
information? They fled, but they fled to such high elevations, the Spaniards couldn't follow them.
Oh, I see.
They couldn't survive in that higher elevation.
So it's been passed down?
It's been passed down. They came down back, some 15, 20 years ago from the mountains. It was just up until that time a myth that they even existed.
Oh, are these the people who I saw a special on National Geographic?
Yes.
Who believe that they are guardians of the world, and they predicted some.
That could be them
coming?
because there's, as I said, there's so many different tribes, and they do have this tradition in several tribes, as do the Native Americans.
It was very interesting.
Yeah, and I'm not sure because I didn't see it, but I would love to.
Oh, this was some years ago.
Oh, okay. But the Karo brought back the teachings, the indigenous teachings. They maintained them, whereas the people had lost the traditions. They had maintained some of it, but a lot of it had been lost. And so this then became possible to reconstruct, and several natives became schooled in the Western tradition. They went to university, and now they have come to teach us.
Oh, I
so
see.
Alberto, of course, had studied with a number of people, he himself, some master teachers. Jose Luis Herrera has also studied with some of the same teachers, and there's several other shamans that I work with, and all of them have a lineage of teaching that, although it isn't identical, it's very similar, because it depends if they're from Lake Titicaca or from the jungle. But see, so all of
There'll be
these
slight differences culturally.
slight differences, but what's more important to me is this. Why I chose this particular form is because they're very anxious for us to share this information.
That was my next question.
Oh, sorry. I'm possibly reading your mind.
Maybe. That's all right. That's all right.
Okay. They really want us to have it so that it won't be lost.
All right.
And there is in their tradition that the eagle and the condor will fly together.
And that means?
The people of the north, the eagle, our North America, and the people of the south,
the condor
will fly together.
Oh, that's a lovely thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
this is all very interesting. And I guess the other question I have is exactly what is the work?
Good. We begin with the idea that we need protection because lots of times when you're doing this kind of work, you're very vulnerable. So I teach several techniques that were taught to me and handed over to me, or I was given these rights.
Protection from?
From energy, certain heavy energy. They don't talk so much about negative as heavy. Everything, it's either heavy or light.
Oh, okay.
And if it's heavy, it means that it's burdensome to you and it may be blocking.
And where does this heavy energy?
We accrue it through stress and tension and anger and frustration and abuse and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so I teach the individuals how to release it and how to clear it, various ways of clearing it, and also ways of protecting yourself that were given to me.
To keep it from accumulating?
Also from keeping it, especially if you're going into a situation that's particularly dangerous or murky.
All right, so it has that in common with many other traditions.
Absolutely.
That there are energies that fall off of us, like, well, for instance, like my cat loses its hair.
Exactly.
And it clings to everything.
Yes, that's just a beautiful metaphor, really.
And that there are practices that are very ancient from your tradition that help with that situation.
And also then they're given various rights for connecting various aspects of their light body, learning, and also healing practices to work on the light body, to clear it, to cleanse it, to reinvigorate it. Because once you clear something, if you don't put something in its place, it tends to get refilled again with the same kind of energy.
Nature abhors a vacuum, isn't that the that's the saying? Oh, I have another question for you that's just kind of nagging at me in the back of my mind. I had a friend years ago who was studying shamanism, and I don't remember from whom, who or whom, I don't know. And she was asked to go on a vision quest up in Big Bear Mountain, where she dug a hole and she sat there for, it seemed like a long time. I don't remember how many, couple of days maybe, or just overnight, and did certain rituals and whatever. Is that strictly a Native American, or would that be a shamanic?
That is very Native American, and I can't really say. In the tradition I've been taught, they never talk about that.
All right.
But
I just thought it was like
but it's very common in the Native American tradition. And one thing about most indigenous traditions, they're all encompassing. In other words, there's not the idea that this is the only way, or this is the way that you have to stay with. This is the only way you can work. Even when I teach, I suggest that everyone bring in all of their tools all of their skills, all of their everything that works for them, and let it work. All shamanic traditions have this in common. They don't remove, they're not exclusive, they're inclusive. So that's another thing that appealed to me. But I did want to mention something about the tools, because
yes,
that came up.
I was going to ask you
in this
what you
tradition, the Florida water that I have here is used to clear the field.
Florida water?
It's called Florida water, Agua de Florida.
Oh.
And it's made of flower essences and alcohol. And they use it, at least in the people that I've worked with, and most, I see it used almost all of the Peruvian traditions that I've come across. They use it to clear the field. They use it to call in spirit, because it's sweet, and a sweet essence is something that spirit likes.
And where do you find this?
Well, you can buy them in botanicas. The only problem is the ones in the botanicas are laced with a bittering agent, so that children don't decide to drink it. So
that's wise.
But if you're spraying it and using it, it doesn't matter. However, the way I use it, maybe should I use?
Certainly.
The way I use it when I'm calling in spirit is in my mouth, so therefore the bittering agent doesn't work.
Oh.
And that way,
that smells
isn't that nice?
Yeah.
And it clears space and clears energy, and also is a gift to spirit. And the rattle is for the same thing. Now, in the Peruvian tradition, they don't use drums. We don't see drums. But we do see rattles, and rattles are used for journeying. And they're used to call in spirit. So that, like a drum, it has a cadence, and that keeps people, that eventually you feel kind of relaxed, and pretty soon you're journeying. and this is...
That's a lovely rattle.
Yes, thank you. That is from Peru. And these are available from Peru, but you have to order them either online, or I have them as well, and other people do order them. But these they say New York, Peru on them. If they don't say Peru, then they're from here. That is, the bittering agent is in there.
I do need to say something for those who are not familiar with the word botanica, which may be more indigenous to the Southwest than Europe. It's simply, what is it, Central America, Mexico. They're common. They have magical potions. They have also aspirin, things like that.
They have candles, a lot of things to use in various ceremonies, and that's a part of this work too, but not that in particular. All indigenous cultures have this in common. They call upon spirit by gifting something to spirit to bring it in. So that would in this Andean tradition is called a despacho, in which you put in many things that represent your harvest, so to speak. If you were in an agricultural society, it would be all of the grains, and they love sweets. So just like in other traditions, they're always offering sweets.
And everybody likes their sugar.
Everybody likes their sugar. So that is something, a part of this as well. And this is a mesa, and the mesa is a traveling altar.
And that's M-E-S-A?
M-E-S-A. It's just like table. It's a Spanish word. It isn't a Quechua word or Quechua. Quechua is the language. Quechua are the people.
Okay.
And
this is just a lovely wrapper.
Yes, and actually this is from one group. Each of the tribes have different certain patterns in their weavings, and weaving is, of course, very critical and very, very important in all of these traditions, because they represent the weaving of our lives.
Oh.
And how our field, our light body, is woven. And so in here are objects that I have collected from all over the world.
May we see?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
May I put this down?
Yes, please do. That represent the teachers that I work with, because in this tradition they believe that, their experience is that, and I have to say that it's all about experience. Everything is experiential. A shaman usually doesn't do what I'm doing right now. In Peru, if you would go, they don't talk a lot. And if they do, it's in Quechua or in Spanish. And so you have to extrapolate a lot. That's why it's lovely to have teachers that come here that can interpret for us. And so these are cloths that come from Peru.
Oh, my goodness.
And they represent many things. We could go on for 3 hours, but not the 4 directions, but the 4 regions. But that's another story. And
regions?
The 4 regions.
Oh,
There's very suyus, they're called. The way the empire was designated And it depended on where you were, in the jungle, by the ocean, on the altiplano, if you were in the highlands.
Oh, I see.
So they all had certain energies. And in this work, oh, I've switched things around here. I have directions, so to speak. So what these represent are various, usually there's a lot of kuyas, or stones. And these stones represent something to us, either because of when they were found, how they were found, what the circumstances were, what we were going through at the time, or what they tell us. And very often it's what, when we sit with our stones, they actually talk to us about what energies they hold.
So you have, what is this little...
This is, somebody gave me, I use, this is my pendulum. And frogs,
frog.
And frogs are very important in Peru. They are considered, two of the animals, animales, have souls, frogs and dogs. For cat people, this is somewhat distressing, but we don't talk about that. Again, and so, and this is a bell, and this is the way we bring energy to the mesa, and also we use the spit water to feed the mesa, and so we say we source a lot of our wisdom from these. In other words, they say that in the mountains resides they call them apakunas, or spirits, spirits of the mountains. And the spirits of the mountains are those that hold the wisdom that has been generated over the eons of time. And the kuyas, the stones, of course, have been here the longest.
Right.
So they have impregnated energetically all of the wisdom of the world, and specifically those that come to you hold particular wisdom for you, teachings for you.
I've always thought that. I have a house full of rocks.
Well, most people, and you look at kids, they always do.
Yeah.
The kids are always with their stones. They just are
This is an
gravitating.
interesting one. It's almost like a miniature megalith, you know, or not megalith, tall standing stone.
Obelisk.
Obelisk, thank you.
And for me, it was the Madonna.
Oh, lovely.
Or the goddess. And so,
And then you have a...
And I actually have a white Tara.
Tara.
Who's also very important in my work. So, and then some of this was found in with the Huicholi people in Puerto Vallarta area.
Oh, it's very polished.
And it's the face of jaguar.
Oh.
So this is my jaguar stone. This was found so many years ago, I don't even know. And look at the dancing figure.
Oh, can you hold that up to the... this camera here.
This camera. Little figure in it. And for me, it is the spirit dancer, the one that dances between the worlds. So each one of these represents something very significant and important. And in my work, I use these to help me and support me also in my healing work. This is my keystone, and this is those things that represent my connection to spirit, in particular how I relate to spirit. And so they're very, very, very sacred to me. And they were given to me by people. For example, my first teacher, our work was the path, which was, of course, the chakras.
Oh.
And so
are those glass or
they're
semi-precious stones?
Semi-precious stones. And it was my idea to put them on this kind of a device so we would meditate with them, basically. And, of course, the pyramid representing something of the... So as you can see, we have Egypt represented. We have many. Here, this is very typical. Of course, they're very connected to the Christian tradition that is since the Spaniards came. Ironwood is something that's for protection, and this is made out of ironwood. So this is also a lot of protection.
You have a seashell. You have
where is my
stones? It looks like some marble or.
This was this was given to me by a shaman. It's very
ivory?
Very significant. It's a tile, though. I don't think it's not ivory. It's but I'm not sure what material it is.
It looks like it might be marble.
Yeah, probably marble. And these are Wairuru beads. These are for protection also. Very interesting. One is a male and one is a female. So it's always about balance. This is, what do they call these? The stones. The names are gone.
A Shiva Lingam.
Shiva Lingam, thank you. And representing, again, the masculine and the feminine. And this was my St. Michael medal. Michael is my... Well, this is probably who knows what, is my benefactor I'm connected with, and someone gave me this as a heart, and this was given to me by a young man in Peru just before I left on my first trip. This is Viracocha, the creator spirit, and he represents of many things, but he has feathered serpent, and serpent is very important. Many serpents, you'll see this in the tradition of India, where they have the array of serpents above the head. Right. This always represents wisdom. And you can see that there is a lineage that goes way back. And they say, well, anyway, this gentleman gave it to me, and his name is Michael. So naturally, this is so important to me. But there is, in their tradition, they talk about originating in Lemuria. And I have always been connected to Lemuria. So for the people who don't know about it, was the first, you might say, spiritual center. And from there came Atlantis. Atlantis was a subsidiary, but Lemuria was the original. And in their traditions, they talk about themselves coming from or originating, because the Andean tradition is very new compared to some of the others. But they base all of their traditions on the older tradition. You know, some of the older tribes. Now, of course, the names are not there, but they'll come. But
that's all right.
But if you go back, you'll see that there are many much older tribes, and they will say that they have.
Yes, I think I read recently that there have even been some new discoveries about civilizations that are older than they even thought possible. Right. In, I think it was South America.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
And if you look at the traditions, you'll find direct connections between Native Americans and North American and their teachings and the South Americans. So whoever came through the Americas and deposited their traditions, and then of course it was adapted to that indigenous culture.
Right. Well, this is just lovely. And how do you lay these out on an altar when you do your work, or?
Well, it's everywhere with me. So when I'm working in my healing room, I use it. I have it open. When I'm working with my students, I have it open. And each student learns how to make their own mesa.
So, if someone were to come to you as a student, how long are your courses? Well,
the initiation, the initial series is 3 sessions, and they're each one day, and they usually fall in separate months. Sometimes we combine them. So there is they're like from 10 to 5 in the morning, but in the second one we go to the mountains, so that's a little longer. The third one they learn how to make the mesa. Following that, they're invited to join an IU, and IU means community. And in that we then meet once a month, and for about a year. And we skip the summer months, but we're there otherwise. And in that time, they learn the various traditions, the initiations, the healing practices, and so on. And then there's the second level in which they learn to, for all intents and purposes, channel the spirits of the mountains. So I'm curious, how does one then finally say, I am a shaman? Oh, good question. One usually never says one is a shaman. If you'll notice on my card, I say I'm a shamanic teacher and healer and counselor. People call you what they feel you are. I call myself, I do shamanic work. I suppose at some point you have to say you're a shaman. Sometimes we've been taught, I think, to our disadvantage, that owning our own power, is there something wrong with that? But I guess if I have to say it at some point, I'm a shaman. I do shamanic work. I do that. That's the work I work. I would think so. I guess. So a student just reaches a point where they feel that they have mastered to a degree what they need in order to be effective in the work. And I encourage them to do it as early as possible. One does not have to be cooked. If we're going to wait to be cooked, it'll never happen. The world needs us so badly that we need to do what we can. And most of the time, people now that are coming to me are already doing something already anyway. So they're incorporating this right away. They're teaching their children. If they work with children, they bring in the stones. The stones, they react to this immediately. So they listen to them, they work with them. That's the whole idea, to play with them and to get familiar with their energy. Well, this is just beautiful. And so if someone wanted to find out more about you, look at your schedule, get in touch with you, or do you do private work? Yes, I do private sessions. I work with all these shamanic techniques. I also do inner child work and past life regression and so on. If they would like to get in touch with me, I have my phone number is 626-335-5555. 1018. I have a school. It's called School for the Shamanic Arts, and that's my website.
And that is?
School for the Shamanic Arts, SCHOOL for the shamanic.
.com, .net?
.com.
.com.
For the shamanicarts.com. And I have my email address on there.
All right.
And they can connect with me through
And your
that.
schedule is on there, and how
Yes.
to contact you, and
all the
and so
information.
forth. Well, Esther, this has been just so fascinating and so interesting. I could just go on for hours.
Well,
Unfortunately, we don't have
We
hours.
don't have hours, Anita, and I want to thank you too for the opportunity to do this. This has been fun.
Thank you for being with us. Maybe we'll ask you back again soon to continue a little more depth.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Please remember to subscribe to our show so that you don't miss a minute of all the wonderful guests that we have for you. Thanks again, Esther.
Thank you.